Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome an accomplished entrepreneur from Milan, Italy, Riccarda Zezza. Riccarda, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good morning.
Riccarda is the founder and chief science officer of LifeFeed. She's an author of two books, Cuore Business for a New Love Story Between People and Work, and she's the co-author of MAM, which is Maternity as a Master. Riccarda has also been recognized and awarded several times. More recently, she was awarded by Fortune India as the most influential and innovative woman and named by the Citi Foundation as one of the 40 female entrepreneurs who are changing gender innovation in the world. So, Riccarda, let me start by asking you, tell me a little bit about your own journey and what was the inspiration to create LifeFeed?
First of all, thank you very much for hosting me. It's really an honor. And so I am 52 years old, and I lived my first 15 years of career in traditional companies. So I was a manager, I was doing my career, I worked in Italy, abroad, and everything seemed to be quite fine. But then suddenly, when I was 36, something happened in my life. I became a mother. And unexpectedly, that looked like a problem to the company where I was working. So I had heard stories about the possibility that motherhood could be perceived as a problem, work-life balance, and so on. But I never expected this would happen to me. So it happened the first time with my first daughter, Marta, and I changed job, I changed country, and I restarted. But then it happened again with my second child, Luca, a boy. And so it happened twice. And I was like, why? Different companies, different countries. And I was pretty surprised. I was 40 at that time. And I realized that there was something I had to do about it, because it wasn't about me. It was about a general flow in the system that perceived life as conflicting with work. Right. So that's how the idea started, to create something to change this perspective on how work and life relate to each other.
Okay.
And then more or less 10 years ago, I had this idea that because the problem seemed to be the leave, mothers leave, they go on maternity leave for a few months. Every country is different. In Italy, it's 5 months. But I had the experience that I also left my job for studying, for master's degrees. And in fact, my absence of leave with maternity taught me a lot of soft skills. So I thought we can propose companies to frame maternity leave as a master in soft skills. So to really value the soft skills that becoming a mother generates.
Right.
And so that was the very initial idea. In fact, the first project name was Maternity as a Master's, which is also the name of my first book. It's pretty obvious on one hand that you think that becoming a mother, becoming a father, every life experience teaches skills. But for some reason, this didn't flow into the workplace. There is a barrier that makes you think that these skills don't get into the workplace. And so the idea was this, and it started as a methodology. And then I brought it to classrooms, and then it became a platform, and then it became a company. So fast forward 9-10 years later, I am the now chief science officer of this company. That sells to companies, because that's where I come from, so that's the environment I know, a program that enables people to bring to work the skills they develop through life events. Not only maternity anymore, but also caregiving, sickness, every intense life experience develops soft skills, and people can bring them to work.
Wow. What an amazing opportunity for people to be able to bring their life skills to work. So what, in your view, Riccarda, are some of the most common life transitions that LifeFeed addresses?
So as shared, I started with maternity, and I think it's very important when you start your own business to start with something you know very well, because it's it requires a lot of effort. So the closer it is to you, the better. But starting with maternity, I also started studying, and by researching, and thanks to Google and the fact that I speak English, I could really access a lot of knowledge. And I found out that basically there is a whole list of life transitions, people's lives, and each of them has a sort of a stress score. That means like the score of the change in someone's life. They go from moving your house to getting married, getting divorced. And even LinkedIn, 3 years ago, more or less, started asking people to tell about they call them career gaps. Okay? They have a list of 13 career gaps. I think there is a lot of work behind that.
Right.
It's interesting because before that, you didn't have the possibility to insert into LinkedIn what happened in a gap in your career. You couldn't put anything if you were not studying or working. But now you can select from bereavement to sickness to child to a lot of things. And we have been working a lot, of course, with mothers, but also with fathers. 2 years after launching the Mothers Program, we launched the Fathers Program. That's as important, as interesting, and probably less visible. But also caregiving, so caring for your own parents. Not everyone is a parent, but everyone is a child. And sooner or later in your life, if you're lucky, you will take care of your own parents. And that is very relevant as a life transition. But now, after COVID, we had the opportunity to have a general shared life transition that was about everyone in the world. COVID was an incredible transition for everyone.
Right.
And so everyone is entitled and everyone has life transitions. It's important that we realize that we're going through a transition, and that means that we are going through a change, and that means that that change is bringing skills for us to face and go through it. So every life transition brings a network of people normally, brings the need for change, so handling it, but also relational skills and problem-solving skills, if you imagine what happens when something happens in your life. So today we have had around 70,000 users in 100 different companies. We gathered a lot of data. That's the miracle of technology. And now we really can tell, according to different ages and different genders or different experiences, what kind of skills people develop through life experiences.
Very interesting. So just to understand this a little more, there are people who bring in some of their skills, and then you've got a lot of people who are on your platform. How does that skill get transferred to someone who's wanting to learn something new?
Yeah, so it's very interesting because this is all about something that I call the elephant in the room. You know what is the elephant in the room? It's the identity of people. We always start learning or start working giving the identity for granted.
Right.
So we enter the office and we wear our working hat. We enter home, we wear our family hat, but we don't realize that we're entering a place with a role. If we realize that we have different roles, the context normally tells us this is a problem, there is a conflict. If you speak about work-life balance, you have in mind, I have more roles, I have to juggle them, and I have to go from one to the other. But in reality, we naturally have the capacity to transfer our resources from one role to the other. That's naturally there. It's part of the human being. What happens is that stereotypes makes it very difficult. So in a way, we wear that role in that way because we think it's effective, and normally it is effective. So we might be more empathetic with our children than we are with our colleagues. That's pretty natural. But what happens is that if we need more empathy at work, instead of taking it from our other role, we normally try to learn it from the outside. So we go for, painting classes to learn empathy. And the paradox is that we actually have that empathy, but it's behind the wall of the role. How do you break this? We needed a word to do this, because despite there is a lot of evidence about this is all scientifically proven by others, we invented a word which we call transilience. It's the meta skill that allows skills to flow from one role to the other. So you become aware. We have a tool that is called Multi-Me Finder that makes you aware of all the roles you have and makes you aware of all the skills you have in every role. But then you get to know you have this tool, this capacity when you need, not always, only when you need, to take a skill from one role to the other. You don't have to bring everything you are in every role you have. You don't have to do that. That's not effective.
Right.
But you can do it when it's needed. And the interesting part is that if you start doing this, when something happens in your life, let's imagine a parent gets sick, and it's a very sad thing. You have to face it. It's hard. You have to work with it. But if you know that you can bring this role in communication with the other things you have, that role starts exchanging resources with the other roles you have. So you're being a father can help you being a child. And at the same time, you're being a child can give resources. And it really increases self-esteem a lot.
Great response. Thank you. And a few minutes back, Riccarda, you spoke about technology. Tell me a little bit more about what role does technology play in delivering live feed services to all your clients?
It's essential. I was not a technology person. I'm very much of a knowledge person, but I have to say, if I didn't have technology, I couldn't have done this. We started delivering this methodology in classes, but I was very frustrated because I could see that it worked very well, but I was frustrated by the lack of scaling. We couldn't scale. We couldn't reach people when they were in the transition. Sometimes they didn't even come back from the transition, so we lost them. And we could go 20 by 20, so that was really a limit. And that's why we thought, let's put the program online. It was really beginning. It was a sort of an online journaling about what happens through this transition. But today, fast forward, thanks to AI, thanks to the amount of incredible reflection, we have collected more than 500,000, I think we are around 1 million now, reflections from the users. Those are all lines of text where, thanks to breaking their stereotypes, they create a whole new knowledge about what this means. And AI can help us transform this into new exercises. And finally, the data that we're collecting. I can tell you now that an average person has 5 roles per day. I can tell you what kind of skills, how many skills, how skills transfer. So technology really made it possible to reach different countries, to reach so many people, but especially, and this I think is the most important thing, to create knowledge about out of what is happening. Otherwise, things would happen anyway, and people would have the benefit. But we couldn't scale it to, as you're doing, for everybody to know what's going on and maybe build on it. You know, what we want to do is really universities to study our data and create more knowledge. Even new services could arise from that, because I am a little bit sad that despite the fact that we have been out for 9 years, there is no competitor yet. And I would love to have competitors because that they create the market.
Correct. Great response. The other thing that I noticed when I was preparing for my conversation with you was that live feed also supports in the development of leadership skills. Tell me a little more about this.
Actually, leadership skills are the ones that arise more clearly from life events. Absolutely. We work on relational skills, we work on organizational skills and innovation skills, but leadership skills really come out of life. We have seen that more than 80% of the mothers in our programs increase their leadership. But if you do this, what happens to leadership itself? If you start connecting it to life, it changes the way people perceive their own leadership. It becomes intergenerational leadership. So if you think about yourself as a father, at the same time as you think about yourself as a CEO, your decision improve because you perceive the fact that you have an impact on the next generations and not only on the bottom line of your company. So that's very important, because in a way what we say is that caring transforms leadership into responsibility. If you inject caring into leadership, you will get a sense of responsibility that the world needs. So my idea is not that much to extract traditional leadership from life events. It is to contaminate the leadership model through the perception of us having a life and caring for people.
Well said. One more question relating to live feed, and then I want to move to your books. You know, you said you're working with many hundred companies. What is the kind of feedback you have received from companies about live feed?
I have to tell you, Ashutosh, it's not easy at all. The story is a beautiful story, But to create such an innovation, it's very expensive, not only economically, but also in a sense of creating the market. I thought it would be easy. When you work for companies, you think, I do something new, nobody else does it, it works, they will come. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we had to enter the companies through the needs they already had. And no company needs the skills that people develop in their life. This is not an existing need. Company needs soft skills. Companies need people to feel well because they want people to be productive. So we really, still today, and then 9 years later, I can tell you that most companies buy our service because they see that people feel better, they feel stronger, their work-life balance increases. But only a small percentage of them really see the development of leadership, the intergenerational skills. There is a lot of potential there that because of our size, we're still pretty small, we can't really deliver. We should have much larger shoulders. We now went one step more because I just hired a new CEO. So the company for the first time in its life is not led by me anymore, but is led by a professional CEO. And that's a very important stage for a company our size. We are small, we are 35 people. Huh? So it's challenging. Companies, they have to be brave to buy something so innovative that doesn't really have an ecosystem around it. I have to find, normally I work with CEOs, they have to be very visionary because they see the benefit. But if you go one step below, the immediate needs are not the ones we are responding to because we're responding to them in a different way.
Well said. So, Riccarda, you're also an author of 2 books. Tell me a little bit about both your books and, what are some of the insights you want our viewers and listeners to take away from both your books?
I think books are still very important because I think that sharing knowledge is probably the best thing we can do. And the first book is about the theory behind maternity as a master's. So it's my first baby. It's already 10 years old. That's why I'm so surprised that nobody else is doing this because it's been around for 10 years. It makes me laugh, it makes me smile when people are afraid because they're afraid that other people will steal their ideas. Because that is not a risk. Right. You would wish that people would steal your ideas and just make them theirs, no? Yeah. And so maternity as a master is really important for me. It was very easy to write. I wrote it with an executive coach that contributed to the methodology. And it really was about how I experienced motherhood. For me, it was really a surprise to see how stronger I had become, how many skills I had developed. So it was a way for me to also tell about my experience, but sharing what I thought was the story that hadn't been told, that nobody told me. I wish somebody had told me this story this way.
Right.
And it's still like that. I still receive letters, emails from many mothers about the fact that this book helps them to reframe their experience differently. It doesn't change the experience, it changes the frame.
Okay.
The second book, which came out last year, is called Core Business. And it's about the fact that I am more and more worried that people are not putting their heart in their job anymore. So even after COVID, I would have hoped that things would change a little bit, but apparently there is more and more a separation between people's hearts and people's job. And I'm worried about that. So it's not just about women. There is a chapter on women, but women in a way are showing what the problem is. They are a symptom, and they're not the problem. If you create a situation where women can thrive, everybody can thrive. That's interesting. So you should look at women and learn from them what is needed to change, not try to change them.
Right.
But also it's about anyone who's going back to work after a pandemic or a sickness, or they are perceived to be weak, and they are asked to leave things out of the workplace. And this is it's a sort of a general sickness we're having, and we can see it in young generations. Also by the good and bad of this telework that we're having. In a way, we become just input givers on a computer. But in fact, the work needs our heart. So the main message of the second book is, through work, we take care of the world. Our work is the way we dedicate to it every day, a lot of hours. We can take care of the word through work. It's such a powerful tool to do that. But we have to bring our heart back into our work, and we have to be allowed to do that. But for that to happen, things must change a lot.
Right.
And I've seen how resistant to change is the system. There is so much against change.
Great response. So I have time for 2 more questions. My next question is, what personal experiences have shaped your approach to life and work integration?
As said, when I was, for the first 15 years of my career, I was the classical young woman, talented, working and going where was needed. And the only perception I had about diversity itself was that, for example, when I went to Finland to work for Nokia, I realized that it was easier for me to work in Finland than in Italy. Because when you translate your own language, you're also making an extra effort to be understood.
Right.
So you avoid some biases that normally you can have in your culture. And that was interesting for me. But then my real striking moment was when I became a mother. And that taught me a lot also for the next phases. A couple of years ago, I took care of my father. But I had already learned a lot about how to do it. And now there is one more transition I'm going through right now. You never stop. And I think that will change a lot. It's not just about the fact that I'm becoming chief science officer. So I'm going to dedicate my time to what I'm passionate about. I was not a CEO. I didn't want to be a CEO. I had to.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I just discovered that I am autistic, which is strange because it's another form of diversity, which is about you, doesn't change you, but changes a little bit of the frame. So I'm very interested in how this will get together with my work life. And also the other thing is my children are becoming teenagers. That's another major shift, I think. Children are always bringing new experiences to my life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well said. Well said. Riccarda, my last question to you, given all the amazing work that you are doing and have done in the past, what legacy do you hope to leave in the world?
So now I have it a bit clearer because in the last couple of years it was a little bit too challenging, but now I know. I wish that thanks to the work we are doing and the knowledge we will keep on sharing more and more, people will be clear. People will feel better about who they are. People will rely more on themselves. It will be more clear that we have a wonder inside of us that only needs to be seen in order to exist. And that way we can have a very good impact on the world. So I really believe in that. So I'm hoping the data we will share and the research we will trigger will help changing this perspective on human beings and letting their identity be a real source of wonder for the world.
Wonderful. And on that note, Riccarda, thank you so much for speaking to me, telling me about your own journey. I think that our conversation about Live Feed was absolutely fascinating. I had no idea that there was such an amazing platform available where not only could you bring your own skills, but others could learn from it as well. Clearly, you've developed something which is very valuable and will benefit human beings in a long time. Thank you also for speaking to me about both your books. I think there are several lessons that you spoke about, and I'm sure my viewers and listeners will enjoy taking away a lot of those lessons from you. Thank you for speaking to me, and good luck to you.
Thank you very much, Tosh. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.